Hey everybody, it's Paul. Today we are going to be reviewing one of my childhood favorites, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark. This book was one of my go-tos when I was a kid. It gave me the creeps, it gave me the chills, it made me look behind the shower curtain. So when I saw the movie coming out, I was like, I've got to go see it. There were a couple of surprises with it, but overall it didn't fail. So what I want to do is just go over a little bit of the review and go over my top 5 favorite references to the movie. There are tons more than this. I didn't want to make this like a total spoiler alert though, but that being said, if you want to go into this with total, don't even have any clue or whatever, stop watching. Don't go any further. So like I said, we're going to go over my top 5 favorite references, a little bit of the plot. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so first things first, the first way to my heart for any kind of movie is to conjure up nostalgia for the fall season. This movie takes place in Halloween, so you already know what it's all about. Imagine cozy flannels with yummy cups of coffee. The color orange with your favorite little sweater. Huge oversized sweatshirts with cute little hats. And eating and drinking everything you can get your hands on. In the flavor of pumpkin pie or toasted marshmallow. Look, you get the idea. It was Halloween. It was spooky. Leaves were falling. I was in for it. I was living. That being said, that right there with the nostalgic feel of it, all that, I was there. I loved it. Yay, 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 yay. Let's keep going. Now, for those who don't know, might not have ever read it, just know it as a movie, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark is a series of 3 collections of books. They were short, horror stories for children. To me, these were stories think Bloody Mary, the Headlight story, the babysitter story of her calling from upstairs, things of this nature. Now, these were originally back in the 80s, so this was completely my childhood. It was written by Alvin Schwartz, and it was illustrated by Stephen Gammell. Now, the illustrations, as you know, we love those here. Oh my gosh, we can't get enough of them. They were so creepy and so bizarre, and so that was something that I really wanted to see. How is this going to play out in the movie? Now let's do just a quick 60-second plot summary here. What's going on in this movie is they have framed the stories with a larger story about the Bellows family. Now this is kind of your traditional, this one family that has all this money and power, and they have a dirty, dark secret that they have to hide, and part of it is attached to their daughter, Sarah Bellows. And Sarah Bellows was banished to the basement to live and hide away. Basically what ends up happening is she turns her horrifying life into these horrifying stories that affect people in real life. A group of rascally teenagers stumble into the house, and essentially she haunts them through this book and starts taking them out one by one, which is where we see the stories come into play. So there's your little 60-second review there. I wanted to keep that real short and to the point because, again, I don't want to ruin it for anybody, and if you want a complete spoiler alert, go Google it on the tube. So, that being said, let's talk about a couple of surprises that I had before we get into the top 5. I went in there, 2 things in mind, thinking that they were just going to be standalone stories, that they would just say, here's the story of Harold, here's the story of the Big Toe, that type of thing. And I also went in thinking it was a full-fledged horror film. So while we were sitting in the movie theater, we started noticing all these really young children coming in. And I would say there was a range from, I don't know. What appear, everybody looks super young to me at this point. First grade up type thing. But enough for us to stop and say, are we in the right movie theater? Why are there all these kids here? Well, at that point we realized it was PG-13. And that's when I had this realization where I was like, well, wait a minute. I watched this when I was a kid, I read this when I was a kid, so why would it be a full-fledged horror film? Now, I'm not trying to say that I was like, let's go, but I was also like, okay, this is going to be different than what I was expecting, but I was here for it. So, that being said, I was surprised at how young some of the kids were, because if you were to ask me, is this a movie that you could take a kid to? I would definitely go with the PG-13 thing. For me, I grew up watching like Chainsaw Massacre, Friday the 13th, and while those movies did make me look behind the shower curtain and kind of do that type of stuff, I wasn't waking up having nightmares and things like that. So some of the imagery in this movie definitely can make a little kid like, Mommy, Daddy, that's gonna get me! But outside that, I felt it was safe. No one ever actually, you saw them actually like die or whatever. So that part wasn't gruesome. Let's just put it that way. So there's that. Then I was completely surprised to be like, oh wait, these aren't standalone stories. This is like a whole movie with a plot. And so this is where they frame it with this larger story, which I thought they did a good job with it. Again, if they were trying to sell this to an audience older than say 5th grade, or not 5th grade, let's start over. If they were trying to sell this movie to an audience past middle school, like for the first time, like we didn't have the history that we have with it, it would be a little bit like, really, this is a little hokey, if that makes sense. But it worked because it was, for the older people that were there, most likely they knew it from their childhood, so it worked, and it also catered to the same age group that most of us were when we originally read the books, which I thought was awesome. All that worked, all that was fine. They have totally set this movie up to keep going with sequels. Let's talk about my 5 favorite references. Now again, there are numerous references directly to these stories, and some of the stories they had to kind of revamp a little bit, if that makes sense, to make it work for the plot. Number 5, the big toe. So if you remember from the book, they had that creepy little picture of that kid out in the garden with this toe, and he takes it home, and the parents are all excited, and they end up eating it, and then somebody comes back and looks for the toe later. Well, essentially it kind of goes that way for this, but it's a teenager, and his parents are out of town, and he opens a fridge, and there's a magic thing of stew there. Well, his friends are on the other side of the line, and they're sitting here saying, oh my gosh, don't eat the stew, and so on and so forth, and then we meet the scary, scary woman. Now, for me, I just love this one because I love that story. And again, a lot of my fascination with the scary stories, reading them when I was a kid, was the illustrations. And so while this one didn't have that imagery of that creepy little kid, it also had in the movie, we got to see that creepy woman coming looking for her toe. So that was awesome. Number 4, Me Tai Do Ti Walker. This was another one that I thought worked so well in the movie. And again, they kind of revamp it a little bit from the book. And so what we see here that are similarities, yes, the head comes rolling down the thing. Yes, the dog keeps barking and calling it. The build up for this one, it's towards the end. And I mean, it definitely gets you. So this one, I was living for it. The imagery was great. And it also is the catalyst for like kind of like the big excitement towards the end of the movie. So it kept me on the edge of my seat. Number 3, the pale woman from the story The Dream. Now, I'm going to have to say this. There's a couple of things here with this one. And in the book, to me, the book, she was creepier. In the movie, it was almost comical, but she looked exactly like the illustration in the book. So it didn't really veer off from that. But I guess coming to life, I felt like she was less sinister looking in the movie, because she does kind of have this look of like approachable, yeah, not approachable. Maybe want to get her number, but don't want to get her number. You know what I mean? And so she created in the movie the sense of like the claustrophobia, closing in on him, and all that the whole 9 yards. And she was gross looking, but there was still just this kind of almost comical, cartoonish aspect to her. But she didn't fail to serve to further this vibe of just overall creepiness and scare tactics. Number 2. Y'all, this one almost made it to number 1 for me. Almost made it. The red spot. The spiders. Y'all, this story, we've seen this in folklore, we've seen this in horror films. This has been done, it's been done, it's been done. They did such an awesome job with this in this movie. It was, I literally was watching it like, I want to go home and wash my face. I want to wash my face. This happens to like the picture perfect teen girl in the movie. Doesn't it always happen to them? So while you're watching this, you feel for her. It's awful. You know it's coming. It starts up, she's at school, the whole 9 yards. They do it so well, and her reaction is so spot on to how it would be. The way the movie portrayed it, which is like where she, this particular character does not end up leaving us, so to speak. I actually enjoyed that part of it because it gave me. I think it would be more awful to live through that and to be able to sit here and say, "Hi, my name's Paul. I know what it's like to have 1,000 spiders crawl out of my face." Number one. Number one is what sucked me into this for the book. Everything. It is, for me, the most iconic visual of this film, and that is Harold the Scarecrow. This one was so perfect. This is the first real tie-in to the thing that we see as far as like the direct stories and go. For me, it was like the most recognizable one. And, if you remember in the book, it was like these farmers and they kind of took their aggressions out on the Scarecrow until he comes to life and, does what he does. And essentially the same type thing happens in here, but it's almost like more revamped. So part of the scary aspect of this story was just your typical, it's nighttime, this horrifying Scarecrow. You're out in the cornfield. Things of this nature. There are some aspects that were a little unbelievable about it. The mother wanting him to go deliver eggs at God knows what time it was on Halloween night. It's a little bit like, maybe we could have done something differently. But whatever it took to get the teenager alone in the cornfield is what it took. So that was my favorite spot. They did an excellent job of that. The Scarecrow, the imagery of it, he was horrifying. And after the fact, where he took over the bad teen of the movie, the meanie, it was amazing. So I absolutely love that one. Okay, so those are my top 5 moments. Like I said, there are so many more in the movie. I just wanted to touch on my top 5, the ones that I like. Now, again, they have set this movie up to have sequels. They can keep coming with this. This would be a Halloween staple as far as I'm concerned. This, to me, was like Hocus Pocus turned up a little bit on the scare factor of things. It just had that wonderful fall Halloween aesthetic. So I am here for part 2. I'm here for part 3. I'm here for part 4. I'm here for part 5. I'm here for 6. You get the picture. Thank you for hanging out with me. I hope you enjoyed this. Drop me a comment. Let me know if you ever read the book originally, if you like it, what your favorite story is, and I will talk to you later. Bye.